recording. Good morning and welcome everyone to the Valley Economic Alliance Pathway to Profit series, Sales Strategies for Growth. It's May 17th, 2022, and we're super excited to have lots of guests together from the San Fernando Valley region to focus on these really very important topics to build our businesses. So good morning, I'm Sonia Blake. I'm President and CEO of the Valley Economic Alliance. I want to introduce you to our wonderful alliance. We are a nonprofit organization based in the San Fernando Valley region, which is northern Los Angeles County. And since 1995, we've been helping employers and job seekers alike. We've been helping employers to increase their revenues, whether it's through sales strategies or procurement and contracting or exporting, to help employers reduce costs in all sorts of ways, including tax and utility rebates, connecting folks to resources. We help companies to access capital, qualified employees, as well as expand their real estate footprint, all toward retaining and creating good paying jobs here in the San Fernando Valley region. So if by chance you own a business and you would like to get help reaching profitability and growing, then we welcome you to enroll in our business assistance program. And I will pop the link in the chat so that you can complete the intake form. And along those lines, do feel free to put your questions into the chat because we're going to have a lot of fantastic content delivered to you today. And we want to make sure that you're able to get what you need out of this session. I really want to thank our sponsor, Wells Fargo, that has helped us to put on this program and many other programs as well. And we're really excited to have a speaker from Wells Fargo as well that will be with us to share a little bit later on in the program. So we're going to dive right into our presentations right now. And first, I'd like to introduce you to a wonderful entrepreneur, a marketing aficionado, and someone who just is an amazing storyteller herself and will help us to really understand about the art and craft of storytelling to impact our sales message. So I'm super excited to introduce to you the founder and CCO of DuckPunk Productions, Mellissa Tong. Mellissa, welcome.
Hi, Sonia. I'm so excited to be here with you this morning, and we have so much to go over. And shall we start now?
Yes, please.
Okay, all right, let me share screen. Okay, here we go. All right, so I have a lot of great information for all of you this morning. And I also have a little bit of homework, but it's not something you have to do at home. We're going to do it right now. So I want you to be able to walk away, with actionable items. So, okay, so my arrow doesn't work. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to use arrow here. Okay, so today, our first part, which is authentic storytelling, and I'm going to show you how to use authentic storytelling and apply it in your business to get more sales. Now, there will be 3 takeaways. The first one is how to use authentic storytelling to quickly turn prospects into buying customers. The second one is how to craft your brand story to create the emotional connection with your customers. And the third one is how to clarify your sales message to stand out from your competitors. All right, so I'm going to ask you a question that I'm sure you have answered many, many, many times. So what do you sell? Now, in the chat box, I want you to just type your name and what you sell, just in one sentence, not long, just your name. Like, for example, I'm Mellissa, I sell storytelling, right? Something like that, okay? And also say whether you're B2B or B2C. Okay, so I'm going to give everyone a minute to do this. I only see one so far. Is everyone shy? Okay, here we go. Okay. Is that everybody? Okay. Anybody else? before I go on? Okay. All right. Okay, so there's a point to this exercise, and I'm going to tell you why as we go along. All right, let me close this chat. So in case you're wondering, okay, who is this Mellissa Tong? Why is she talking to us about storytelling? So I actually started my career as a TV newscaster. I was on the job for 4 years, and they gave me a 5-minute human interest segment every day, where I covered everything from health, beauty, technology, science, red carpet events, movie premieres. I went to Star Trek convention twice, sat on the captain's chair, did my intro and outro. It was a lot of fun. So in those 4 years, I interviewed thousands of people from all walks of life and ended up crafting and covered over 1,200 stories. So that really laid a very solid foundation for me as a storyteller. And fast forward, after that, I started my own company, DuckPunk, in 2000. And we have been doing TV commercials, branded content for Fortune 100 companies. We also do a lot of storytelling and customer communications training, and help our clients raise sales and engagements up to 400%. Now, I'm going to skip over this because of time. And this is, our partial clients list. And this is some of the work. These are some of the awards that we won over the years. Now, so I want to ask you this question. What is a brand? Can anyone tell me what you think a brand is? Go ahead and mute yourself if you want to help me answer this question.
The public image.
Public image. Okay. Okay. Very close. Anybody else has a different idea or definition?
The way that your company is recognized and what it stands for.
Yeah, very good. Very good. Anybody else?
Your brand of service that you're offering.
Yeah, actually, it's all of that. Now, this is a part where sometimes, it's harder for us, as business owners to look at, because a brand is a customer's gut feeling about you, which is a company, a product or service, whatever you sell. It is not what you say it is. It is what they say it is. So the best way to find out if you have a brand is actually ask your customers, hey, I want to ask you this question, what do you think my brand is? Let them tell you. And if what they tell you is aligned with what you think it is, then pretty much you have a pretty good brand image and identity. And if what they tell you is completely different, what you think it is, then you have some work to do. But this is a good exercise. Now, why do you think people buy? Anybody?
They believe in the product, they believe in the person that's selling the product, and there's some kind of maybe value proposition or emotional connection to the company or the product.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very well said. Anybody else? Okay, so people buy because they believe their lives will be better or different afterwards. Now, this is key. So they're not going to buy something regardless of whether it's a product or service. They're not going to buy something if they don't think their lives will be different after using it. So whatever you try to sell, make sure that whatever you're selling will give them the idea that their lives will be better or different. Okay. Now, a buying decision is never made based on facts. A buying decision is always made based on emotions. So Talon, right, said it right. The emotional component is very, very key. Now, although we do use the facts to justify why we buy, so we can feel good and not guilty about spending the money. Now, girls, how many times have we bought a pair of shoes, right? You know, a jacket or a blouse, right? You say, oh, or bag. Oh, I have to have this because it goes with this outfit, right? The shoe, oh, I have to have this pair of shoes because it is going to complement the outfit that I'm wearing to this event, right? Oh, I need this bag because it's going to help me carry this and this and this and that, right? And even guys, I mean, how many times you buy a new gadget, you take it home, your wife and or girlfriend say, oh, didn't you just upgrade your phone or something 6 months ago? Oh yeah, but this new phone is going to have all these new features. It's going to help me do my business, a lot better, right? So we do need the facts. But when we talk about, our brand story, the facts are there to support why we buy. So the key thing is still the emotion connection. Okay. All right, so we're going to look at some iconic brands and their stories. Apple. So their tagline is think different. Nike, just do it. Adidas, impossible is nothing. Tom's, stand for tomorrow. And their earliest slogan was, you buy a pair, we give the pair. Virgin, unique and exceptional customer experiences. Now, when you look at all these iconic brands, what do you think the one thing they have in common? Right? Let's go back and look at it again. Oops, let's see. Right? Think different. Just do it. Impossible is nothing. Stand for tomorrow. Unique and exceptional customer experiences. Now, do all those things evoke a certain feeling when you look at it? Yes, right? All right, so now we're going to look at how you can evoke a feeling when you talk about your story. All right, so I'm going to give you some examples to spark your creative juices. So I worked with a entrepreneur once. So she sells bracelets. And I said, okay, why do you want to sell bracelets? She said, well, because when I was young, she's also a school teacher. And this is a side hustle for her, but she obviously wants to expand. So she said, well, I want to sell bracelets because when I was young, I was told that I was not good with math. So since then, I always thought that I was bad with math until I became a school teacher and I have to teach math. And then once I got into it, I realized, hey, I'm actually not that bad. So I don't know why that particular teacher would say that I'm bad with math. And I teach kids now. So I see that some kids, they do struggle with, certain subjects. And I wanted, do this bracelets to, as a reminder so that they know that they, even if they're not very good or they're struggling with certain things, if they get some help, they can actually get through it. So this is, serves as a reminder. I say, wow, that's a great reminder. But I don't think you really sell bracelets. She goes, oh, well, what do you think I sell then? I sell bracelets. I don't know what I sell. I said, well, think a little more. I mean, yes, the bracelet is the conduit, but what you really sell is something much bigger. You sell a different relationship for these kids. So even if, let's say if they're bad with math, right? So their parents might get help, a tutor, or they sign up for some other programs to help them get better, right? So your bracelet is just there to remind them they can have a better relationship with whatever subject that they struggle with. So your bracelet is not just the bracelets. You're really selling a different relationship with a subject that they have trouble with. I say, well, when you think about it, then when you talk to the parents, because the kids obviously have to, they don't have money to pay for it, so it would have to go to the parents. I say that when you talk about your bracelet with the parents, then it's so much easier when you say, oh, I am selling the bracelets, but the bracelets is just a reminder. I really want to sell a different relationship your kid have, your kids, a kid has or have, with whatever subject they're struggling with, instead of, hey, I'm selling the bracelets and selling the bracelet. You see how this works, right? Okay, I'm gonna give you more examples. So I worked with a CPA once. So he said, well, I like to get more clients, but every time I go to a networking event, every time I tell people, hey, I'm a CPA, I love to talk to anybody who wants a CPA, everyone just slowly like walk away. I say, okay, well, that doesn't really inspire a conversation. I said, well, why do you want to be a CPA? He said, well, it's pretty obvious. I love numbers and I like helping people save money from Uncle Sam. I said, well, don't you think every CPA say that? He goes, well, you probably have a point. I said, okay, we're going to change that. All right. That's not going to be your story. You have no story there. He go, okay, all right. That's why I'm here. I said, okay, all right, let's figure out what story we can use. So I kept asking him questions. I said, okay, can you share with me some stories that you have with your clients? He said, no, pretty basic. I have pretty good clients, but luckily, none of my clients were, have been audited, nothing too crazy. I'll say, okay, well, what about, before you started your business? What about when you were in college? Well, I was a pretty good student. I didn't do a lot of crazy parties. I got pretty good grades. But again, nothing really stood out. I say, wow, this it's hard to get anything out from this guy. So I said, okay, let's walk down the memory lane, right? Let's go back. So what about, when you were in high school, anything you can remember, any stories you could share with me? No, not really. I mean, I was always pretty good with studying. I wasn't, I wasn't involved in a lot of different, after school activities. And at that point, it was almost like pulling teeth. And I was like, okay, all right, nothing. All right, let's keep going back. What about when you were a kid? He said, well, I can't really think of anything. My parents are really good parents. And, I had a pretty normal childhood, nothing really traumatic. and I almost wanted to give up. I say, come on, you just think a little harder. We're not going to leave until you can at least give me one story. So after a long time, he said, well, you know what? Actually, there is something now that you're asking, but I almost forgot about it because I never shared this with anybody. I said, okay, what is it? So I'm like, wow, finally. So he said, well, when I was about 7 or 9, my father was audited. And I remember standing by the doorway, watching him pacing back and forth, trying to get his paperwork ready. And it was really painful because he was all stressed out and nobody knew how to help him. And he was driving everybody crazy, because obviously he was in a bad mood. He was trying to get ready and he wasn't quite ready. And it was just a very stressful time, during those few weeks. And I say, well, that's it. Subconsciously, you already decided you want to be a hero at that point. So that's why you picked, accounting later on. And that's why you want to be a hero for all your clients. So from now on, when you go to networking events, share this story. Tell them that, every one of your clients, you're going to make sure that regardless of whether they get audited or not, you're going to make sure that their paperwork is ready and ready and pristine so they can be ready to go at any given moment. I mean, those are your ideal clients. For people who don't really care about whether they get audited or not, or whether they even have any paperwork ready, then they're not your ideal clients. So just say that. You go, oh, okay. So since then, he has been sharing that story and he's been, a lot more successful in terms of getting the conversation going. Instead of saying, hi, I'm a CPA, I love numbers, and I help people save money. Okay.
That's awesome, Mellissa. That's great. I just wanted to give you the 5-minute.
Sure. So I have one more story I want to share with you. So we worked with a heating and air conditioning company once. So before we worked together, they said, okay, we really want to figure out a brand. We want to do a brand story. We want to shoot a video, all of that stuff. So I went in and again, I asked them the same question. Well, what do you truly sell? They go, oh, well, we sell air conditioning and heating units. We've been selling that for over 75 years. And I say, well, I don't think that's what you sell though. And they looked at me like I'm an alien from another planet. Like, are you high? Like, why are you even here? You don't know what we sell. We've been selling that for over 75 years. I say, yeah, that's I don't think that's what you truly sell. So we had a session together, and at the end, I made them realize the heating and air conditioning are the tools they used to sell. But what they truly sell is comfort. So from there, we were able to craft a tagline: no matter the weather, we make it better. So now the whole conversation has changed. So they no longer try to push, oh, do you want a new air conditioning unit? Do you want a new heating unit? They no longer pushing just the units. Now they say, how much comfort can we bring to your home? You see how the conversation is completely different, right? So that's what I want you to walk away with today. Now, okay, so I'm going to skip over these two examples in lieu of time. Now I want you to type in the chat what you truly sell. I want to see if it's going to be different than what you typed in before. Okay, looks like you may need a minute to think about it. And if you do, that's okay. I'm going to be, looking in the chat, after my talk as well. So let me close this. All right, so I'm just going to share very, very quickly ways to use your storytelling. Branding and marketing, elevator and startup pitches, sales presentation, customer communications, videos, social media content, trade shows, and fundraising. So these are all the different ways you can use it. So not just think about, oh, I can only use storytelling on social media, or I can only use it, verbally. So there are many, many different ways to share your story. All right, so I want to make you an offer today. And for those of you who still are a little bit puzzled with all the examples that I gave and still don't quite understand and articulate what they truly sell, so I'm going to help you redefine what you truly sell, and then craft a brand story to create the emotional connection that you need to connect with your customers. And then we also built a slogan like what I did for the heating and air conditioning company to solidify your brand's position to stand out from your competitors. So this is my phone number and my email address. And I only do this when I speak. So today I'm going to offer you a 50% discount. Normally I charge $6,000 for that. And today, if you sign up, I'm going to give you a half price, which is $3,000. And again, the offer expires today. So just go ahead and email me and call me and just let me know, okay, I'm in. All right. So I always end my, before I end, I also have a free gift for those of you. So, I mean, I know all of us have to be on video now to talk about our business, whether you're on Zoom or you have a different video for your social media content. So I want to offer those of you a free ebook on how to be a rock star on camera at this website, rockstaroncamera.com. So take a screenshot and go ahead and download the ebook. And I always end my talk with this quote: the meaning of life is to find your gift, and the purpose of life is to give it away.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mellissa. That's great. Really appreciate all those great kernels of wisdom, really great insight to really shift our mindset. It's kind of the mindset is the iceberg beneath the surface. What, our marketing is what we see, but underneath it all is the mindset. And so changing the paradigm and shifting our mindset, at least getting people thinking about what is it that we really sell, is a great way to start. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because see, once like building a house, right? Mm-hmm. Once the foundation is there, then you can build. So if you don't get the first piece right, which is what you truly sell, right, then it's very hard to build on it. So that's why I look at storytelling as the foundation of a house. Once you build it, you can take it as high and as you want.
I love it. Well, thank you. And I appreciate you're going to be on the Zoom call for a while. I encourage people to put questions in the chat for Mellissa, and she'll be able to type back some answers for folks as we continue on with the program. So thank you so much, Mellissa, for that and for all those great insights. Next, I'd like to introduce our next speaker. Our next speaker will be able to take us to the next level. So we've gotten some great mindset. Now we're going to move into some specific sales strategies. So we have a phenomenal sales guru here with us on the line, the president of Sandler Training, Michael Gordon. And Michael, I'd love to invite you now to share with us some specifics on sales steps, strategies. How do we turn prospects into customers as quickly as possible? Michael?
Sonia, thank you for that warm introduction, and thanks for having me here. It's great to see everyone. I'm going to quickly share my screen with you if you give me a minute. All right. So everybody able to see my screen?
Yes, looks great.
Perfect. So yeah, one more second. Let me be a perfectionist and clean this up a little bit more. So we're going to talk about secrets of the buyer-seller relationship today, and we're going to talk about some of the typical sales challenges that most people in sales have. We're going to talk about process. When we talk about process, we're going to talk about the traditional way that we sell. We're going to talk about the way buyers buy today, and then we're going to look at an alternative approach. And my question for you that I want you to think about as we start going through this are, what are some of your sales challenges? What are some of the things that you run into day to day as you work with prospects, as you try and onboard new people, as you try and grow your business? And like I said, take a moment, think about this. You don't need to share it in the chat if you don't want to. But here's what I can tell you is that all these challenges that we have, it's always about price, doing a lot of what we call unpaid consulting, doing proposals for people that ultimately disappear. It's a lack of process. It's a lack of process. It's not related to anything specifically about your product or service or you. It's really a process dysfunction. And I'm going to walk you through the buyer's process. I'm going to walk you through the traditional sales process, show you where these things break down. And again, we'll finish up by looking at an alternative approach to do things different. So let me show you the typical selling process. And this may not be your process. It may not, I'm not saying it's the right process, but as we work with companies, we work with a lot of different types of companies and individuals. This is the way most people sell around the world. And it's been this way for a long time. And so if you go all the way back to 1893, there was a company called the National Cash Register Corporation. And at that time, employee theft was so rampant that a lot of companies couldn't afford to stay in business, because as soon as somebody would buy something, employees would take that money, steal it, and soon enough, the company would be out of business. So National Cash Register Corporation created a cash register, and they formalized the first sales training process where they would wheel the cash register into the store, do a really hard close, and when somebody bought it, they would light up a 25-cent cigar, which was a lot of money back in 1893. And that's where we get this idea of the cigar smoking, back slapping salesperson. And we call that the caveman selling approach. And it was employed for a long time. And somewhere around the 60s or 70s, folks like Xerox Selling and Tom Hopkins came up with a different approach. And they said, hey, maybe we should make this a more client-centric approach where we ask them questions and figure out what's going on with the client. And it was better. It was a lot better. But as Mellissa said, it wasn't good enough, because the first part of needs analysis was typically asking questions. And like Mellissa said, needs and wants are okay, but people buy emotionally. And so figuring out what the needs are kind of glosses over that fact. And once you've done a needs analysis, once I said, hey, Sonia, what's going on? What's your biggest challenge this year? I would typically do a presentation or a proposal or a demo or whatever that looks like in your world. And depending on what your industry is, that could be a different thing. And once I've delivered that, once I've said, Sonia, here it is, da, 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 do you see how this will change your life? Now I'm a salesperson and I'm taught to ask for the order, to try and get some commitment. And sometimes it works. Sometimes I get a yes and I'm a really happy salesperson. But a lot of times I get some stalls and objections. I hear things like, this looks good, but I need to talk to some other people. We're still waiting on 2 other quotes. not now, it's the busy season. Why don't you get back to me in the new year? And as a salesperson now, I'm going back and forth. We're playing a game of ping pong where I'm getting an objection, I'm handling it back to the prospect. And we're both exhausted. At the end of this, I don't know whether I got a sale or not, but they said it looks good. Why don't you give me a call on Monday? And now it's Monday and I'm calling and Sonia's not answering the phone. So anybody, does this look familiar to anybody? Anybody seen this process before? And I'll tell you, it's not a bad process. And that may be part of the problem is it works. And I sold, prior to Sandler, I sold this way for a long time, made a lot of money, never missed quota, but it's not efficient and it's exhausting. And I'll ask the other question, who's in control in this process? I'm going to help you out with this one because we're limited on time. The prospect's in control. So now we're going to take a look at the buyer's process. And if you look in bigger companies, some of these folks even send their people to buyer's school to learn how to beat up salespeople. And a lot of times in smaller companies, smaller organizations, it's just a process. And you may even follow this process yourself as a buyer. So let me show you this. So express interest, pretty self-explanatory. That means somebody has come to you and said, Mellissa, I'm interested in what you have to do. Next step is to act motivated. Act motivated. I saw somebody on here sells office supplies. If a prospect came to you and said, my brother-in-law is in the business, he sells office supplies, but he's my brother-in-law, not my brother. So I'm just trying to keep him honest and I need to get a quote to make sure that he's giving me a good price. How much time do you think you'd be spending with that person? The answer is probably not a lot. I know somebody out there is probably saying, well, I talked to them anyways, but second step of the buyer's process is to act motivated. Next step is to obtain information. Obtain information, and we call this unpaid consulting. The buyer wants to know what you know. They just don't want to pay you anything for it. Next step of the buyer's process is avoid commitment. And what this looks like is, it's kind of misleading because they say, Michael, this is amazing. This looks really good. I never knew we had so many options. This is really astonishing and mind-blowing. So they avoid commitment. They act nice, but they give you excuses. And anyone want to hazard a guess as why these folks are so nice? And again, you don't need to type this in the chat, but if somebody said, we're still waiting on some other quotes, or this is too expensive, their guess is that even a decent salesperson is going to start going into overcoming stalls and objections mode. And now they're in a conflict and they can get rid of you by just being nice. They can get rid of you by just being nice, by telling you how smart you are and how great your presentation was. And final step is to disappear. And so let's take a look at these two systems side by side. And we call this the buyer-seller dance, because you have two people enter onto the dance floor. You have an interested prospect and a motivated salesperson, and you leave with an educated buyer and a frustrated salesperson. Anybody ever seen these two systems at work? Seem like a fair, equitable system? So let me ask, is anybody, and this will be a rhetorical question, anybody ever lost a sale to a competitor and you knew that the solution that the person bought was not going to be a good fit and they were going to be in a whole lot of trouble once it actually got delivered? And it happens all the time. It happens all the time because we're so focused on letting the buyer run the process. And when the buyer runs the process, they end up making bad decisions most of the time that's based on lowest price, that's based on incorrect information. So let's take a look at how we can do this a little bit differently. And I'm going to give you a Sandler rule. And it says, learn to be disarmingly honest. And we'll talk about disarming honesty in just a few minutes. But let me show you a new process, and I'll leave it up to you to decide if this is a better way to sell, a more effective way to sell, or if you want to keep doing the traditional sales. So we talk about building the relationship. And so the first step in our process is what we call bonding and rapport. And most salespeople will tell me they're great at bonding and rapport. And what they really mean is they're good at making small talk and having chit chat. And I think we all know the golden rule, which says treat others the way you want to be treated. But when we talk about bonding and rapport, I want you to think about treat others the way they want to be treated, because different people have different personality styles. And maybe you're somebody who likes to make some small talk and have that conversation about your weekend and their weekend, but not everybody likes that. And so people connect with people that are like themselves. So think about that as you move through. Next step of building the relationship is what we call upfront contracts. And all an upfront contract is the verbal agreement between myself and my prospect in a couple different areas. Number one is how much time are we going to have for the conversation? What's the agenda? Talon, what are the things that you want to make sure we cover during our time together? What are the things that we're going to talk about? What's my agenda? And my agenda is always to ask a whole bunch of questions so I can see the world through your eyes, Mr. and Mrs. Business Owner, because it's going to be hard for me to tell you whether or not I'm a fit or if I can help if I'm not able to see that through your eyes. And as part of that, my disarming honesty is, as we go through this, I may decide that what I do just isn't the right fit for you. And if that's the case, I'm going to let you know as long as you're comfortable hearing that. And same on your side. If you feel like what I do, what we do, Sandler as a company, isn't the thing that's going to be the solution for you for whatever reason, would you be comfortable letting me know that? And then finally, outcomes. What are the things that we're going to decide at the end of the meeting? And one of the things that we may decide is that this isn't a fit. And if that's the case, we'll call it a no. On the other hand, we may decide that this seems to make some sense, and that doesn't mean that you become a client, but we may need to schedule another meeting for our next step. And if that's the case, we'll make sure to take the last 5 minutes and get that on the calendar before we leave the meeting here today. And people talk about ghosting and prospects disappearing because we're not figuring out in advance the things that we're going to be deciding at the end of the meeting. So next step is what we call actionable pain. And as Mellissa was nice enough to point out, people buy emotionally. So when we think about what do you sell, everybody had some sort of answer, but the reason why people buy is typically about 4 to 5 questions or 4 to 5 layers deeper. I'm going to show you a nice little tool to give you an example of this. So think about something that you sell. We call this the painometer or the painometer, depending on how much education you have. But on one side, we have intellectual, and the other side, we have emotional. So I want you to think about a pain indicator, or what your prospect, how your prospect may give you an intellectual description of a problem that they have. Anybody want to type in the chat real quick an intellectual description of a problem that your prospect might share with you?
Can you elaborate with that?
Manually entering work time for employees. I appreciate you sharing that. Years ago, I used to work for Paychecks. I'm pretty familiar with that. So prospect says, hey, we're manually entering that. And an average salesperson jumps on that and says, let me tell you about all the ways we can solve that problem. We can do automated entry, we can do all this, we can do all that. And you're stealing their story. And that's equivalent of somebody saying, hey, I don't feel very well. And you saying, well, enough about you, let's talk about me for a minute. So what a good salesperson does is they hear a pain indicator. We're entering times manually, and they get more information. Can you tell me more about that? Can you give me a specific example? Because we've all heard this saying, every time I think about it, I get angry. So I need to get them into an emotional state. And so that's where a good salesperson might stop. A great salesperson goes even further and says, can you tell me how that impacts the company? Can you tell me how much time that's costing you, how many man hours it's taking for you to actually add all those things together? What is that costing you, and how does that impact you personally? And you'll be surprised by the answers you hear. You'll hear anything from I'm working weekends to it's such a big impact, I'm not going to be able to sell the company if I don't want to. So great salespeople go from intellectual, they take a description of a problem that we call a pain indicator and get it all the way over here to emotional by finding out how long it's been a problem, what's the cost, how does it impact you personally, emotionally? Are you committed to figuring out, is there really is it really worth investing time and money to find a problem? And then what does that vision of the solution look like? Because if I don't have some idea of what that looks like and they don't have one, then I'm going to tend to find out later when it's too late. So let me jump back. So that's what we call pain, something personally compelling and emotional that people can commit to taking action on it. If I've done a great job in pain and I've quantified, figured out what the cost of the problem is, now it's time for me to find out what's their budget. Are they willing and able and willing to invest anything necessary to take care of this problem? And money is just one thing that they may be willing, they may need to invest. The time, resources. Anybody ever sold to a non-decision maker? So are they willing, are they willing to invest political capital and champion you through the organization to the other people that are going to be involved in making the decision? So that's budget or investment step. And if I get a yes there, then I need to find out what's the decision-making process. Who else does this problem touch? Who's involved? If we're going to implement a new solution, who are the people that need to be on board for this? And if everybody's on board, who's the one person that might say no? And when does this solution need to be in place? Because if somebody tells me 2024, then it's great to hear. My family likes to eat every day. So I'm probably going to go find somebody that has a more stringent timeline, that's willing to get something done quickly. And that's what we call qualify or disqualify the opportunity. And once I have a qualified opportunity, a prospect that I understand has a problem that I can fix and they're committed to fixing, they're willing and able to invest anything and everything that it takes to fix that problem. And I understand that they have a decision-making process. Now it's finally time to do fulfillment, or what you may know as a presentation. We call it fulfillment because I'm not showing them a whole company deck about all the things I think that's great about me and my company, because that's kind of like showing somebody pictures from your family vacation. You think it's awesome, but nobody else cares. So I'm going to address specifically the things that they said were important to them that they need to solve, with the upfront agreement that once I'm done with my presentation, that I'm going to get a decision. And it may be a no, but I think it over isn't going to happen because I've invested my time and resources in order to make this presentation fulfillment happen. And then finally, if that is a yes, I get a chance to do my post-sell, where I get to say, Sonia, I appreciate you putting your trust in me. I know we're going to do a great job for you. At some point, you're going to say this has been one of the best business decisions you've ever made. Sonia, when that day comes, would you be comfortable if you and I put our heads together and brainstorm some people that are just like you, that would be open to a conversation about the way that you and I have worked together? And people always tell me that they're uncomfortable asking for referrals, or that people don't give them. It's because you don't ask. And we don't ask because we don't oftentimes get permission to ask, and people don't feel comfortable when we do. So I'm going to set that up and make sure once Sonia gives me a compliment and says, this has been really great, now it's time for me to say, do you remember when we had that conversation when you first got started about putting our heads together and brainstorming some ideas? And now we're going to sit down and I'm going to help her think of all the people that she can possibly think of that might be open to a conversation about growing sales, doing less discounting, scaling out a sales organization, and growing revenue. And that is it.
Michael, this is amazing. If you might have 2 more minutes, if that's okay.
Well, I'm done. So that's it. So I'll leave it up to you guys. Is that better than what you're doing? And if it's not, I always tell people, if what you're doing now is working, then don't change, keep doing what you're doing.
It's so helpful to have that laid out in that whole cycle, that 7-step cycle, which is amazing. I know folks would probably have some questions to drill down deeper. Michael, that was amazing. It was just really so clear and just so compelling to look at the way sales used to be done, and then an even improved way, but even another way of doing it kind of merges the needs of the buyer, the seller, building the relationship, really solving problems and helping to alleviate the pains people are feeling, and then kind of creating that foundation before going ahead and pursuing the fulfillment or the presentation. And then that all important last step of really having them partner to help other people in their network to continue to get the word out about it. So that was awesome. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome. Thank you.
If anyone has more questions for Michael, please feel free to put that in the chat. So we went from very conceptual and message making and storytelling. And we went to more specific on these 7 steps to sale. And now I really want to get even more specific and get into specific tech tools that can be utilized in our businesses to really leverage and increase our sales. And that's where Edwin comes in. So Edwin Bordy is AVP, Associate Vice President of Senior Business Sales Consultant at Wells Fargo Merchant Services. And we're so thrilled that Wells Fargo has been our partner and our banker for so long at the Alliance, and really excited to hear from Edwin. What kind of tools are available for businesses these days to help them to explode their sales? Edwin, are you still with us? Can you share?
Yes, I'm here. Can you see me? Can you hear me?
We can hear you. We don't see you, but we hear you just fine. Oh, there we go. Hi, Edwin. We can see you.
There we go.
Terrific.
Oh,
Welcome.
thank you guys all so much for having me. It's honestly, I love everything I'm hearing from everyone. I'm writing down notes myself. Obviously, as a sales consultant, there's a lot of tips and tricks I'm picking up from everyone. Michael, what an amazing presentation. Honestly, it's been great. And it was such a privilege when they reached out to me and said, Edwin, we'd love for you to go on this, the Valley Economic Alliance and discuss profits. Now, I wasn't given too much guidance. So to be honest with you, the deck they sent me over, it was all about Wells Fargo, and I didn't feel like that was appropriate for today. I wanted to join in with everyone's conversations because it sounds like, we just went over some great tips and tricks on capitalizing a sale, right? How to maximize that opportunity, how to get a lot more yeses than nos, right? By asking the right questions, by building those relationships, by knowing when to overcome an objection, when we have an objection as opposed to a condition. These things are just amazing. So now that we've discussed all these tricks on how to capitalize the sale, how can we capitalize on that particular opportunity, right? Because like for example, let's say I got a great presentation from Michael and I'm ready to buy his product, but how do I pay him? Now, how do we collect that payment? And that's where I come in, provide opportunities and tools, like you mentioned, to be able to take the transactions. Anything alternative forms of payments, anything that has to do with cash, that's where I would come in. Again, I did kind of want to talk about a few things. I think originally I was given 15 minutes, so there's a few things I'll briefly touch on. Of course, I do want to apologize. I was mentioning earlier, I just got in about 3 hours ago. No, actually 4 or 5 hours now. I was stuck in New York with, they got some severe weather conditions out there, delayed all kinds of flights, all kinds of flights were canceled. So if I'm not 100% myself, full of energy, now you know why, right? But yeah, so, I'll probably be preaching to the choir, right? Because statistically, only about 10% of clients now don't accept credit cards. But I do want to kind of talk a little bit about the importance of accepting credit cards, why we should for our business. Ultimately, you're giving your clients a lot more options, when you're trying to capture that sale. Once we've gotten the yes, once we've gone through all the objections and everything else that comes with the whole sales process, we want to be able to give them options. And a lot of times cash, isn't just a sufficient option for clients. So being able to provide them the ability to pay with gift cards, through checks, through our telecheck systems, through, again, credit cards, it's just going to really open up your clientele a lot more and help you capitalize and increase your profits and revenue. So that's one of the biggest reasons you're going to be able to accept credit cards. You want to be able to broaden your, the clientele that you're accepting. The reality is that people do tend to spend a little bit more with credit cards as well. Statistically, it's a survey done recently by Forbes has shown that the clients do spend an average of about 17 to 18% more when accepting credit cards as opposed to only accepting cash. It gives the clients that much more opportunities to be able to purchase this, what they call in the industry impulse buying, right? So I don't know how many of us provide services or even products in particular, but a lot of the times, something that goes along with the sales process is the upsell. Right. So maybe you're looking at a particular product or a particular service and the client sees something that might interest them. Or as we're going through the sales process, like Michael mentioned, as we ask a lot more questions and deepen that relationship, we might find additional opportunities because at the end of the day, that's what we are, right? We're problem solvers. We're here to provide solutions to our clients. And so as we're beginning to ask those questions and deepen that relationship, and something comes up, an opportunity comes up that we can address, how can we make sure we capture that as well, is by offering services like accepting credit cards, because that maybe the client entered with just the specific mentality of purchasing that one individual product or maybe that one service. And like I mentioned, after that conversation, now it's opened up the doors to so much more. And now by accepting credit cards or alternative forms of payments, you're able to capitalize on that. So it does show that statistically, those that do accept credit cards do increase their average ticket because people do tend to spend a lot more by accepting credit cards. Another thing I want to discuss, and we've talked about this on another call, was loyalty programs. The sales cycle is an interesting one, and I could definitely send you out the original deck that we had seen. This was probably the only slide I would have kept, was the sales cycle that goes through, a simple phase of discovery. That's when a customer, either finds you through word of mouth, through maybe the marketing efforts from your company. Then there's the product introduction, then there's the buy, right? And a lot of the times that's where the cycle ends. And what we wanted to discuss, if this conversation is about increasing our profits and our revenue, then we have to engage our clients even after the sale. What do we have in place in order to keep these clients, returning to us? Do we have something, a way for us to communicate with them on a daily? I don't know how many of you are in the restaurant industry, but I get a text message every other day from a restaurant, letting me know, hey, come in for lunch, here's a 20% discount, here's free chips and guac. Do we have something in place that's going to keep our clients engaged and coming back, either through marketing efforts, constant communications, or even loyalty programs? Do we have a rewards program in place to help our clients coming back to us? Because at the end of the day, yes, our goal is to provide an excellent customer experience. But after the fact, how can we keep them loyal to us? Because the reality is those loyal customers will refer 5 times more new customers than a one-time customer. And that's what we want, right? We want to increase our revenue and our sales and profits. So that's one of the biggest ways we can do it is, do you have a loyalty program in place? And if not, what can we look at? And that's one of the biggest things is, again, we have a limited amount of time on here, but our hopes are that after this, you can reach out to us individually and say, Edwin, can we talk a little bit further about this? Can you take a look at my loyalty program? When's the last time you even had that taken a look at? Because the reality is, do you even have the reporting to know how engaged your clients are, so that we know if we have to make changes on that loyalty program? Are they redeeming the rewards? If not, what are my rewards looking like? Are they, appeasing to the customer, or is it something that they're very interested in? So these are very important things that we need to take a look at, when we look at our businesses, when we're looking to increase our profits. After loyalty is really, I think one of the biggest things that I discuss with my clients when I sit down for a consultation is, what reports you have in place, to take a look at your business, to check the pulse on your business, right? Are we seeing where our biggest ticket items are at? Are we seeing what our margins are? Are we taking in consideration, the cost of our employees, our included overhead, or are we just kind of driving blind? I'm a true believer that to understand, where we're going, we need to understand our numbers of where we are at and where we've been to really be able to project going forward. And so for a lot of those companies that are in retail, again, I ask, do you have a POS system in place? Are you taking advantage of the retail reportings that are provided? If you're in a restaurant, same thing. Are we taking a look at our food costs? Are we taking a look at just the entire overlay of your business? Do we have the reports in place and the systems in place to be able to kind of take control of our business and manage it, right? Take the helm of our business as we kind of navigate through these waters, right? And really, when we take a look at all that, those are the things that we want to, when I sit down with a client and we discuss their business, those are the things I address. So those are the questions that I ask. I really want to get a good understanding of where your business is right now, because although I provide merchant services, and that's really my area of focus, right? And, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask for that business, right? At the end of the day, I want to help you retain much more of your profits. And, accepting credit cards does have a fee. That's where we come in and help reduce those costs and those fees to help you maximize and retain a lot more of those profits that, you're working so hard for. But, when we sit down, beyond accepting the credit cards, I really want to get an understanding of your business. I really want to be able to find a way that we can, provide a solution that's going to help you, increase your sales, maximize your profitability, retain and increase your customer database, at the same time, help you be successful. So, I mean, that's really what I have. I just, I wish I had more for you. Again, I think a lot of us could talk hours upon, what we're so passionate about. I think the biggest thing is, I think the first lady, I'm sorry, I forgot the name, mentioned telling the story, right? And I think my biggest thing is I don't sell merchant services. I sell an experience. I sell really, I'm very passionate about helping business owners succeed. Helping them, get through this, because unfortunately there's a lot of companies out there that do the exact same thing that I do. I think a lot of you right now, when you found out I was doing merchant services, wanted to hang up, right? And we get calls every other day. We want to save you money. And that's not what we're here about. That's not what Wells Fargo is about. We're here to help you, guide you, understand your business, and ultimately provide solutions that, will help your business throughout its growth. So I'm hoping that after this, I can share my information, my contact information, so that you can reach out to me directly if you have any questions. I'd be more than happy to offer no consultation, no cost consultations, over the phone or in person. I am local, just to really get an understanding of, where your business is at, and ultimately, what we can do to help you. I don't know if there's any questions for me at this moment or.
Awesome, Edwin. Thank you. Thank you. We're so glad that you were able to join us this morning, and your energy is amazing. And we appreciate your heart also for businesses and to help, and really happy that you're here, and definitely encourage all of our presenters today to put your contact info in the chat so that people can get in touch. I mean, you had some wonderful offers made today. Really appreciate their time and insights, and there's more, that you can obtain by continuing to get in touch. So thank you, Edwin. That was super, super helpful. I love that Edwin brought up about loyalty programs and how we can help. What did he say? If the idea is to increase profits, not just revenues, then you have to engage the clients after the sale. I think that was a wonderful kernel, an insight to make it just worthwhile to have logged on today. Anyway, so there it is. I hope that you've been able to glean some new ideas, some inspiration, some tools, and even some contacts from within our speakers to be able to take the next step. I'm going to put in the chat again our business assistance program at the Valley Economic Alliance. It's completely free. And what we do is we have you complete an intake form if you're looking for help, especially kind of trying to figure out, how am I going to get profitable? How am I going to increase sales and decrease expenses? Then our business advisors will sit down with you and kind of talk through and refer you to different experts. A lot of the people that we work with and organizations we work with in our network are also free services. So there's that. And then there's also contracting with a professional that can also help you work on your specific circumstances too. So that's another option that's available. I want to thank you all for coming. I really want to thank our three amazing presenters today, and thank all of you for logging on today. Our next program at the Alliance, we have various educational webinars, and then we also have committee meetings that work on various regional issues impacting the region. This Thursday, our Livable and Sustainable Communities Committee is going to be meeting, and we'll have Senator Portantino talking about a bill that he sponsors, which helps create or turn retail spaces into housing opportunities for us here in California and in the Valley. So he's going to talk about that. That's called adaptive reuse. And then we're going to have Mark Polimas from the governor's office come talk to us about our opportunity zones and what kinds of incentives there are for companies that want to expand in underinvested areas of our region and help prosper their business and grow our local economy. And with that, it's 11 o'clock. We're going to go ahead and call us to a close, but I do want to encourage you to visit thevalley.net/events to learn about other programs that we have going on, and to get the replay from today and any presentation slides that our speakers might make available, which will be there at thevalley.net/events. Thanks everyone for joining us today. Thanks Erica for helping us get the program together, and we'll see you all again next time. Have a great, great week. Bye-bye.